At a retirement seminar in Tampa this past March, a financial planner stood at the front of a packed room and delivered the same line every advisor repeats: wait until 70. Always wait until 70. Earn that 8% annual delayed retirement credit, lock in the bigger check for life. A man in the third row raised his hand. He'd taken his Social Security at 62, 3 years earlier. His advisor had called him reckless. His colleagues had told him he was leaving money on the table. So how did he end up with $84,000 more in his brokerage account than the colleagues who waited? The math is the part nobody wants to show you. Today, we're going to show you. Walk into any financial planning office in America and ask when you should claim Social Security. You'll get a version of the same answer. Wait, maximize, delay until 70. Earn that 8% annual delayed retirement credit. Lock in the bigger check for life. It sounds responsible. It sounds disciplined. It sounds like exactly the kind of advice a serious adult should follow. There's only one problem. For a significant percentage of Americans turning 62 in 2026, this advice is not slightly wrong, it is mathematically wrong. The numbers don't support it. The longevity data doesn't support it. The investment arithmetic doesn't support it. And once you understand why, you'll see exactly how the financial services industry built an entire claiming philosophy around a math problem that requires you to know something nobody can know. My name is Jude, and I spend a lot of time running the numbers that the financial services industry finds inconvenient. If you want the math behind retirement decisions that most advisors won't walk you through, subscribe and hit the like button if this ends up being useful. This one is important. Let's get into it. The math problem hiding inside the wait until 70 advice is this. To benefit from delaying Social Security until 70, you need to live long enough to collect those higher checks for enough years to overcome the 8 years of checks you didn't take. Miss that break-even age by even a few years, and the person who claimed at 62 collected more total dollars, often substantially more. The math isn't subjective. And the assumption baked into the advice you're being given is that you will live well past your statistical life expectancy, will spend zero of your Social Security checks during your 60s, and will face no policy changes to the program in the next decade. Each of those assumptions is questionable. Stacked together, they form a fantasy. Let's look at what the actual 2026 numbers are. The Social Security Administration confirmed a 2.8% cost of living adjustment for 2026. The average retired worker's monthly check rose to roughly $2,064. For someone born in 1960 or later, the full retirement age is 67. Claiming at 62 means accepting a permanent 30% reduction. Waiting until 70 adds a permanent 24% bonus on top of the full retirement amount. So a worker whose primary insurance amount sits at $2,000 per month would see roughly $1,400 starting at 62, $2,000 at 67, and $2,480 at 70. That spread looks dramatic on paper, almost $3,000 per year separating the early claimer from the late claimer. Surely the bigger check wins. Unless you don't live long enough for it too. That's where the break-even math comes in. Here are the actual break-even numbers. A retiree facing the choice between claiming at 62 versus 67 receives 60 months of payments before the later claimer collects a single dollar. At $1,400 per month, that's $84,000 banked by the early claimer before the race even starts. Once the 67-year-old starts collecting, they receive an extra $600 monthly compared to what the early claimer keeps getting. Divide $84,000 by $600, and the break-even point lands at roughly age 78 to 79. Stretching the comparison to claiming at 70 versus 62, the break-even pushes to age 80 or 81. Comparing 67 versus 70, break-even lands around age 82 or 83. Multiple 2026 analyses from Mercer Advisors, Beneforum, and the Bipartisan Policy Center all converge on these same ranges. Now here's the question your advisor isn't asking out loud. What if you don't reach those ages? The Social Security Administration's Office of the Chief Actuary publishes mortality data every year. According to the cohort tables, a 62-year-old American male has roughly a 53% chance of surviving to age 84, which means 47% of 62-year-old men won't make it to that age. Roughly 1 in 3 doesn't reach 78, which is the break-even point most planners reference. For women, the survival odds are better. About 3 in 4 make it past 78, and roughly 2/3 reach 84. Still, the picture isn't the universal certainty of longevity that advisors implicitly assume when they tell everyone to wait. The conventional advice operates as if you will definitely outlive the break-even. For nearly half of men and a significant portion of women, that assumption is wrong.
There's another layer the conventional advice ignores entirely. Life expectancy is not evenly distributed across the population. Brookings Institution research documented a 12.7-year gap in life expectancy between American men in the highest income quintile and those in the lowest. Think about who actually relies on Social Security as a significant portion of their retirement income. It's not the top income quintile. It's middle and working class Americans, whose life expectancies tend to run shorter than the headline averages suggest. Smokers, people with chronic conditions, workers from physically demanding jobs. The very people whose Social Security checks make the biggest proportional difference in their lives are statistically the least likely to reach the break-even age that justifies waiting. The wait until 70 gospel assumes you live like the average member of the upper middle class with a college degree and a desk job. If that doesn't describe you, the math changes considerably.
Here is the calculation your advisor almost certainly hasn't run for you. Take a 62-year-old who claims and doesn't need the money for daily expenses. Maybe they have a paid-off home, a healthy 401k, and a working spouse covering current bills. Their $1,400 monthly check goes straight into a brokerage account. Over the 5 years between 62 and 67, that's $84,000 in contributions. Park that money in a diversified index fund, earning a real return of around 5%. By age 67, that early claim pile has grown to roughly $96,000. By 70, it sits closer to $115,000. By 80, it's pushing $200,000. Meanwhile, the 70-year-old delayer is just cashing their first Social Security check, and every month thereafter, the early claimer keeps adding their benefit to the investment account. At a 5% real return, the break-even between claiming at 62 versus delaying to 70 shifts to roughly age 84 or 85.
At a 6% real return, the break-even between early and late claiming pushes past age 87. At 7%, which has been close to the long-term average real return on U.S. equities, you may never break even within the lifetime of an average American. Read that again carefully. If you have the discipline to invest the early checks and earn returns close to historical averages, the delayed claiming strategy has no mathematical advantage during a typical lifespan. That's not a fringe finding. Mercer Advisors states it plainly in their 2026 break-even guidance. The Social Security Administration itself acknowledges the investment return factor in its own publication titled When to Start Receiving Retirement Benefits. The math is documented. It's just not what gets discussed in most advisor offices. Here is the structural reality of how financial advisors are compensated. The vast majority of retail financial planners earn some portion of their income through assets under management fees, typically 0.5 to 1% of whatever portfolio they're managing for you annually. Your Social Security check doesn't count toward their AUM. It's a government payment that flows directly to your checking account. It's invisible to their fee structure. But the money in your investment portfolio, your IRA, your 401k rollover, your brokerage account, that's billable. Every dollar you pull out of your portfolio to live on during your 60s while you wait for a bigger Social Security check at 70 is a dollar that shrinks their fee base. Every dollar of early Social Security income that supplements your portfolio in your 60s is a dollar that keeps your managed investments intact and potentially growing. The math of delaying benefits the advisor differently than it benefits you. Early claiming tends to win when 4 factors are present. First, you have health challenges or a family history that suggests a shorter than average lifespan. Second, you have the financial discipline to invest your early Social Security checks rather than spend them. Third, you have a meaningful retirement portfolio that benefits from not being drawn down during your 60s. Fourth, you have genuine income needs in your early retirement years.
You don't need all four. Even 2 or 3 of these factors shift the math substantially in favor of claiming early. The standard advice assumes none of these apply to you. That assumption is wrong for a majority of Americans.
To be fair, waiting does win sometimes. Specifically, waiting makes mathematical sense when you have a strong family history of longevity and are in excellent health. When you have no immediate income need and other income sources fully cover your living expenses through your 60s. When you're married with a significant income gap between spouses, where the higher earner's delayed benefit serves as valuable survivor insurance. And when you know yourself well enough to know you'll spend the early checks rather than invest them. If all 4 of those conditions apply, the conventional advice is probably right for you. The problem isn't that waiting is always wrong. The problem is that advisors deliver the wait until 70 recommendation without checking whether those conditions actually apply to the person sitting across the desk.
The strongest legitimate argument for waiting isn't the bigger check, it's the survivor benefit. When a married couple has a significant earnings gap, the higher earner's Social Security benefit becomes the surviving spouse's income for the rest of their life if the higher earner dies first. A 62-year-old husband with a $2,000 primary insurance amount who dies at 75 leaves his wife with whatever he locked in at whatever age he claimed. If he claimed at 62 and received $1,400, she gets $1,400 minus any reductions. If he waited to 70 and received $2,480, she gets $2,480. For couples with significant income gaps, this survivor math is genuinely compelling and often justifies a coordinated strategy where the lower earner claims early and the higher earner waits. That specific strategy has real merit. Blanket advice to everyone to wait does not. There is one more variable that nobody putting together a Social Security claiming strategy wants to discuss. The Social Security Administration's own trustees report projects that without legislative action, the combined trust funds will be depleted sometime between 2033 and 2035, at which point incoming payroll taxes would cover roughly 75% to 80% of scheduled benefits. Congress will act before that happens. They always do. But the action could take the form of reduced benefits, means testing, changes to cost of living adjustments, or increases to the full retirement age. A person claiming at 62 in 2026 locks in 8 years of checks before any of those changes are most likely to arrive. A person waiting until 70 collects their first check right around the window when changes are statistically most probable. This isn't a reason to panic. It's a reason to factor in policy risk when advisors present delayed claiming as a mathematical certainty.
Here is the framework you should actually use. Start with health. If you have meaningful health concerns or a family history suggesting a shorter than average lifespan, the break-even math strongly favors early claiming. The longer the break-even, the more your health picture matters. If you're in excellent health, ask whether you have the discipline to invest early checks. If yes, run the investment return scenario with realistic return assumptions. If the break-even under those assumptions exceeds your realistic life expectancy, early claiming wins. If you're married and the higher earner, ask what a larger survivor benefit is worth to your spouse. If the answer is meaningful, a coordinated strategy, lower earner claims early, higher earner delays, deserves serious analysis. And in every case, run your own numbers. The SSA.gov website has a calculator, so does AARP. The specific break-even for your primary insurance amount and your claiming age will be precise. Use it.
The wait until 70 advice is built on a single assumption that you will live well past the break-even age, that investment returns are irrelevant because you'll spend your Social Security checks rather than invest them, and that the policy environment will remain stable for the next decade. For some people, those assumptions are accurate. For many people, they are not. The decision isn't complicated once you have the actual numbers. Calculate your break-even without investment returns, then calculate it with realistic investment returns. Compare both to your realistic life expectancy. Factor in your survivor benefit math if you're married. Consider your policy risk tolerance. That's the analysis your financial advisor should be walking you through. If they're not, now you know why, and now you know how to run it yourself. That's the Social Security math your financial advisor isn't running for you. If this changed how you're thinking about claiming, hit the like button. It helps more people find this. Subscribe if you want the next one, which is going to cover why the 4% rule is broken and what the updated research says you should actually use. Links to the SSA break-even calculator, the Mercer Advisors analysis, and the Bipartisan Policy Center data are in the description. Run your numbers. The math is yours.